everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome back to the very Shui Comic Vault. Today, I'm going to tackle the first arc of Dan Jurgens Batman Beyond, which started in 2016, and can't believe how long ago that has been already. He's still on this book, somewhat surprisingly, and I've heard mixed things from people. Thought I should probably finally go ahead and give it a go, and just going to talk about the first arc. It's Beyond the Grave, I think, although DC Universe Digital has it also listed as The Return. Some of it's, if like the first couple issues are called The Return, and then it's Beyond the Grave. I kind of missed that as I was looking at the titles of the story at the beginning of the issue. But anyway, suffice it to say, it is about a character or multiple characters may be coming back from the dead or not being dead in the first place. Spoiler alert, everybody that you think might be dead is not dead. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil the crap out of this today, I think. Go ahead and just kind of give you a sense of what's going on in the story, and you can decide if you want to read it and or move on from there and continue on with Dan Jurgens' run if you want to. Everything up to the last, to about a year ago is available on DC Universe right now. That's where I read it digitally here on my handy comic reading tablet, and I thought I would review more stuff this way, things that I'm not necessarily buying right away or going to get around to. And I should say I was not caught up on Batman Beyond up to this point, so I've read a smattering of things, Beechin and Beyond, Beyond Batman Beyond, but mostly I've just read the Beechin stuff, and then I fell off years ago during the Justice League Beyond stuff because I just got kind of bored with that, and I didn't like getting like 8 or 9 pages a month of each story. They were doing Batman Beyond and Superman Beyond and Justice League Beyond. They put that all in one book, and when they collected it physically, and it was just not enough story at a time, so I got impatient with it, and I stopped, and I've only checked in here and there since then. This was more or less pretty easy to just jump right into. The Rebirth issue helps a little bit to kind of recap some of the stuff that happened before all of this and just give you a sense of the status quo currently. So something happened with Spellbinder. I have not read that stuff, so I don't know what exactly that episode is about, but something happens where Terry McGinnis is taken off the board. Dan Jurgens keeps talking about it that way and doesn't tell you exactly what happened, but and again, I've not read that stuff, so I can't tell you right now, but something happened with Spellbinder, and Terry McGinnis was gone for a good long time, and everybody thought he was dead, and now he has popped back up again and is going undercover in order to infiltrate the Jokers and save Dana, who has been rescued by their leader, who is named Terminal. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne has also been taken off the board, and everybody thinks he is dead, but of course, in genre fiction and especially comics, if there is not a body, they are probably still alive. I did not for an instant believe that Bruce Wayne was dead yet. That seems like a thing you ought to get to at some point in Batman Beyond. He is really old, and what does Terry McGinnis have to, how does he deal with being Batman by himself and not having his mentor and having to fully take on the mantle without that crutch? It would be really nice to eventually get to that place and tell that story, and we've danced around it in the Batman Beyond stuff that I've read, where Terry is more or less ready to move on without training wheels. He doesn't necessarily really need Bruce Wayne, and he should be considered Batman even without Bruce Wayne, and yet we have to keep Bruce Wayne alive because he's Bruce Wayne, and one of the big selling points of Batman Beyond is seeing the dynamic between those two characters. But it would be nice to be able to eventually move beyond that status quo, as sad as it would be, and really give it the weight it deserves to kill off Bruce Wayne and make Terry McGinnis have to fully realize himself as Batman without that crutch. I thought maybe that's what we were doing for a second, because I had heard that at the beginning of this, Bruce Wayne is not there, but it turns out that there is not a body and he's just missing, and so I'm like, okay, he's probably alive. And it turns out that he is. We are, at the same time as we're supposed to be wondering what has happened to Bruce Wayne, we are also looking at what is allegedly the corpse of the Joker, who Terminal is trying to bring back to life for some mysterious reason that turns out to be not all that interesting, and kind of a cookie-cutter villain plot where it turns out that Terminal is not actually interested in bringing back the, for lack of a better term, god of the Jokers. The Jokers basically worship chaos with the Joker as their figurehead, and they might want to bring back their leader and or the man that they think of as their, dead mentor and god, but he does not. He has, he's supposed to just be the super genius who thinks that because he's so smart, he's entitled to have it all. That's what he keeps saying, and he wants to use what is allegedly, because it's actually not, the corpse of the Joker to convince the Jokers to follow him and do whatever he wants, to do his bidding. And what he's really after is access to some kind of new technology that Wayne Enterprises was developing that is this like major intel gathering machine, which is not discussed a lot, and I don't know what exactly it does, but I guess it just it gives whoever is using it all the information they want, and that will give him power, and he just wants power. And he's a really typical villain, and he's also very Crypto-Freak-esque, may I say, because he comes from... Because he and Terry McGinnis went to high school together, and his one big prevailing character trait is he's so smart, and he wants to prove to everybody how smart he is. And so he's, since high school, he's been wanting to, rule everything as much as possible. And so he's got this grand plan to make the Jokers follow him by making them think that he's resurrecting the Joker. And it feels really gimmicky, and that's kind of just there to make the reader think maybe the Joker is gonna come back. And it also reads for a second like it's trying to be clever in not doing that, where it's like, no, it's not actually the Joker, because isn't that the obvious thing to do? And, in Batman Beyond stories, the obvious thing to do is to just do either the Batman Beyond version of a character or to bring back an old villain. And sometimes that's done well, and sometimes it's not, and one of the big mantras of the cartoon show was, let's not do that too often, and let's give Terry McGinnis his own rogues gallery and make them really interesting, and make you watch this show for Terry McGinnis and not just for the kind of throwback Batman stuff and just the greatest hits, right? And Beechin came in immediately with Hush Beyond, and I was like, oh no, we're doing that. We've got to immediately start with somebody you've heard of. But he made it interesting, and I liked that story, and immediately after that he started doing other things, and it wasn't always just about bringing back an old villain. Well, this looks like it's Jurgens, again, trying to be clever about that, and then ultimately it turns out that he's doing exactly what it looked like he was doing in the first place, which strikes me as vintage Dan Jurgens. Jurgens' kind of MO is to get to the end of an issue and be like, look, it's this character that you never would have expected to see because it doesn't really make any sense that they're there. And he does that kind of thing a lot, like the Mr. Oz thing with, Jor-El being the big bad guy. Nobody ever would have expected Jor-El, right? Yeah, because it's weird, and I don't know that it actually really made any sense. And so he kind of does that at the end of this. Again, I'm going to spoil everything. So it turns out that the Joker corpse is actually Bruce Wayne. And because this guy, again, wants to use Bruce Wayne in order to get this amazing intel machine from Wayne Enterprises, and so he paints up the corpse, or I almost said the corpse, he paints up Bruce Wayne's body, Bruce Wayne who is actually still alive and who he found after the Brother Eye War, where just nobody was paying attention because there was so much chaos. Nobody was paying attention to who the elderly, sick and dying people were, and so he was able to just go into a camp and steal Bruce Wayne's body, and he just got lucky that he managed to stumble upon it and then came up with this plan after that. Oh man, it's Bruce Wayne! I can just break into his company and take things! And so I'll just steal him and then feed him intravenously and keep him alive but not conscious, and just use like his fingerprints and retinal scan and stuff in order to get whatever I want, and then I'm gonna paint him up like the Joker and make the Jokers think that he's the actual Joker, so they'll do whatever I want. So that's his big master plan. And again, vintage Dan Jurgens. Oh, you thought it was the Joker? No, it's actually Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne's the opposite of the Joker, and we wouldn't be crazy enough to try to, right away at the beginning of our run, do the Joker again in Batman Beyond. And then we do it anyway. You get to the very end of this, again, spoiling everything. The end of issue 5 is, Terminal's henchman, who is just this stupid janitor guy. I think that's who it's supposed to be. It's the janitor guy. It turns out to be the actual Joker, who is still alive or back from the dead somehow. No explanation. Everybody in this keeps talking about how he died years ago and how impossible it would be for him to come back, and then he's just there. I will say the way... let me find the artist's name. I haven't even talked about the art or who drew these issues yet, but Bernard Chang draws most of this, and then weirdly, Pete Woods draws issue 4. And then Chang comes back and writes the other two, or the other one, excuse me, number 5. And his art's fine. It's pretty pencily. It's pretty sketchy in places. I think he and Pete Woods complement each other pretty well. So when I got to that issue, it wasn't jarring. I could tell it was different artwork, but it's close enough that it didn't take me out at all. But it's kind of cartoony. It fits the Batman Beyond style okay, I think. Like I said, pretty pencily. Didn't blow me away or anything, but it's decent. Sometimes faces look a little bit blobby and amorphous, but the action is pretty good. And panel layouts in this, I should say, are pretty dynamic and pretty varied and interesting. There's one page toward the end where there's a big Batman Beyond symbol in the middle of the page that like creates the panels, and I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. It's that kind of Batwoman Detective Comics thing. I like that a lot, but or it reminds me of that anyway. It's not exactly that, but just using bats to form panels, I guess, is all I'm talking about. But anyway, so I mentioned that. Oh yeah, I mentioned that to say that when the actual Joker shows up in the end, he starts crowbarring our bad guy, Terminal, and Terminal tells him to pull out a crowbar to do something, and that's a mistake because he's talking to the Joker, and the Joker loves hitting people with crowbars, so he picks up a crowbar and he starts beating the crap out of the bad guy, and that's drawn really well, and I like the look for Old Man Joker quite a bit. A little bummed out, I guess, to find out that the very next issue is going to be some kind of League of Shadows thing and doesn't immediately get us back to the Joker. So I don't know how long it takes to, unless he's operating in the background. I haven't read it yet, but I don't know how long it takes to get back to that and to do the big epic Joker story. I imagine that's been done already, probably, finally, but I guess I don't know. So anyway, it's this really silly bait and switch, right? Where it's like, it's not the Joker. We'd be crazy to do that right away. No, yes, it is. The really awkward thing, it's just really super gimmicky and reads a little fanficky. And I'm a broken record with Dan Jurgens because I've said that before. Dan Jurgens is sometimes an okay idea guy, but he goes back to the well of gimmicks and teases and kind of just ways to keep the reader going, and it doesn't always read like, great character-driven fiction so much as it reads like just it's just kind of a cartoon. And so, I don't know, it's entertaining. I mean, I'll give it that, but it's hard to take it seriously because it does that kind of thing where it's just, get us to the next plot twist. And so it reads very TV, very not great TV, So anyway, but the really confusing thing for me with Batman Beyond in modern comics has always been that it's sort of continuous with regular DC Comics continuity, and it's sort of continuous with the TV show, and it kind of cherry picks what actually counts from the TV show and what actually counts from comics. And for whatever reason, we seem in this to have disregarded Return of the Joker, and I don't know why. I don't know if there's anything in the continuity before this that has already paved over that. And so it wouldn't make any sense to use it now, but we get a different flashback for what happens to the Joker that has something to do with, like, a big snow truck, and a big fight with Batman, and that he dies in, and it's not what happens in Batman Beyond, which is infinitely more interesting and more epic and exciting. And it's kind of sad that we've lost that, and that Terry McGinnis doesn't have his background with the Joker, because he in this has very clearly never met the Joker before, and that's a real defining moment for his character, and in making me buy him as the legitimate Batman. And again, that we could lose Bruce Wayne and he would still count as Batman. Terry McGinnis facing the Joker in that movie anyway ends up being a really important thing, again, for that character and for the legacy of Batman. And that movie won me over and made me think that he needed to face the Joker. And, you know, doing the Joker in Batman Beyond, again, seems like such an obvious thing that could be really super gimmicky and not that interesting. And it feels like that's the direction we're taking it with this, where it's just, we're doing it because we haven't done it yet in the comics. But I think it would be a lot more interesting as a follow-up to that movie, and kind of easier to buy because he was a computer program in that took over Tim Drake's body. And so to have it be physically the Joker, unless it ends up being that again, I guess I don't know whose body that is necessarily, but it's just, we had a really good, like, reasonably believable way to bring him back in that, and now we've paved over that for seemingly no good reason. But I do appreciate that Dan Jurgens does some other major not revelations, but developments in this, where Dana is finally learning that he's Batman, that Terry is Batman, and it reads a little silly that we're just now getting to it, where it's like, it's been years since high school, and since you haven't had any time for me, and you're just now getting around to telling me. And I should say, he doesn't, at least he doesn't arbitrarily pick this moment. She finds out for circumstantial reasons. She's just in the middle of all of this. Max and his brother Max and Matt, are helping him to put on to get a bat suit again. They've broken into the Batcave and they've found him a prototype suit, which is why he's wearing a new suit through most of this. Even though there is an issue where he's got the new suit, but on the cover it's the old suit for some reason. But I'm not, by the way, the biggest fan of that suit. I didn't really like it from looking at it in the covers, and now that I'm seeing it in the context of this, I'm still just not really digging on it. Yeah, it looks like a goofy Batman prototype suit, and kind of odd that you would keep using it, especially since Bruce Wayne turns out to be alive, and presumably Terry is going to continue working with him, so I don't know why he couldn't just, like, build the old suit again, why it's gotta be this silly-looking prototype suit. And it's the same thing as Spider-Man 2099, where it's like, these suits are part of what draws people to these characters, and like those futuristic designs are really cool looking, and in the Batman Beyond case, so deceptively simple that's a lot of what makes it work. It's kind of like it's kind of like the black costume Spider-Man suit, that it's really odd to start messing with it. And, you know, I kind of get, like, having a cool prototype suit for a while and then going back to it, or if it really is just that good. But in my opinion, it's just too busy. There's too much going on with it. The eyes are weird. The like red, like, zipping out the top and going up to the top of the cowl thing. I don't know. It looks odd to me. And I'm not saying it's bad because it's not what I'm used to. It's just, it's that suit, but with a bunch more stuff going on and not as cool of a utility belt. I'm just complaining about the aesthetics of it. But anyway, so, but like I said, we did the same thing with Spider-Man 2099, where we had that, and I think right around the same time, or just before it, in Peter David's third volume of that, I want to say, he's wearing that like white Power Rangers Dino Thunder looking suit, and I'm like, why are we changing the suit? That's a lot of the draw for people for that character. But anyway, so he gets that prototype suit, and then because he's messed up the old suit, and he's got to operate for a while, again, undercover, pretending to be one of the Jokers, which doesn't have really any kind of a payoff. Like, he's just undercover for a minute, and then Terminal recognizes his voice, and then it's like, oh, I guess I can't do this anymore, and that's it. It's not really an undercover story. And Jurgens feels like he's plotting issue to issue. Because he says he's like the son or the grandson of Match's alone, which is kind of a fun idea, but we don't do anything with it because just immediately he's found out, and then we gotta, you know, run off and do Batman things. So, again, it's all just writing to the next plot twist, which is kind of frustrating to me. But anyway, so she finds out that he's Batman, and it feels kind of weird that it's been so long. I can't get a peg on how old his brother's supposed to be. It seems like he's still a little kid, and he's never gotten any older, but it's been years. I don't know how much older he's supposed to be. Maybe he's a teenager now, but he still looks like he's like 12, so I don't know what that's about. And, but that's kind of the big development. So it's nice that right away he's changing something major in the status quo. I guess that's good. It's a fun read. It's hard to take seriously. Like I said, it's pretty typical Jurgens. I don't love it. I'm curious about how he handles the Joker, so I will probably eventually read on. But I'm not really all that excited about anything else with him writing Batman Beyond, because again, I thought he was a weird choice. I've read some of this now. He is a weird choice, and he doesn't have great distinct voices for different characters. Everybody kind of talks the same, and he'll have characters say things that feel kind of out of character, and a little bit, I hate to say, like a middle-aged or older man trying to write kids. It does have that problem a little bit, which is funny because he keeps doing that. Like he created or co-created, I think this was kind of just his invention, Superman's kid, Jonathan Kent, or John Kent, and he has that problem sometimes too. Like, whenever somebody else comes in and writes John Kent, I'm like, oh man, Dan Jurgens really doesn't write kids that great, and he's got that problem a little bit here. But anyway, so lukewarm for me on Dan Jurgens on Batman Beyond, but I was curious about it, and enjoyed a lot of things in it. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, sure appreciate it, and I will see you again next time on The Comic Vault. Happy reading, folks.